Hi, my name is Manpreet Kaur.
And I'm Deborah Ball.
Today, we're both going to bring a testimony of the night of the first testimony that happened at Trumpet of Truth. So, I've invited Deborah to a Indian party of my cousin that happened in a city that was an hour and a half away from Woodstock. I invited her with excitement, everything, and I was just so happy for the night of the party and the next Sunday of the baptism as well. I was filled with joy for both her attending my party and being baptized the very next day as well. So nothing could have stopped me all along the way. The joy was just too powerful there. I've been waiting for 2 years to get baptized, and the right time came. So that moment, when on that Saturday night where we left, I left with Deborah. God knew the problems that we were going to face along the way. We took 3 cars. My parents took 1 car. I took my car. Deborah took her car. I went with her. My brother took his own car because he was going to come home earlier. And we all went our separate ways, but to the same destination. Along the way, just outside of Cambridge Ramp, Deborah's car overheated on that Saturday night before going to the party. And we were on the side of the curve. Luckily, my brother was like 5 minutes away from us. He turned his car around to pick us up. And, I just was just, cherishing how Deborah was so calm, even though in the midst of the storm that we were in. To a car breaking down, it can be very huge for one individual. For another, it can be like, oh, it's a breezer, it's gonna get fixed. So it really, really showed me a perspective of how she had her full dependence on God to, it will be reconciled, that it's not the end of the world, how I would have seen it. However, my brother picked us up. We picked up the car, it was still, we could still drive it, but it was overheated. We parked it in the first exit of the parking lot, and then, we went to the party. We got there, we came back, and that night, when we came back from the party, it was just my brother, Deborah, and myself. We had amazing conversation. I had so many questions about things from the Bible that, God used Deborah to answer, and she shared her life testimony with my brother, and the curiosity that my brother had in learning about Christ as well. That was all a setup from God. There's no way, all the things that happened, and God used every moment to reach out to who he wanted to reach out to in those midst of the moment, even planting the littlest seed. And after that, and I was still full of joy because I was going to go to get baptized the next day, so nothing could have stopped me. And then when we went back to Cambridge to pick up, calling the tow truck and making sure Deborah's car gets back to Ingersoll in a safe place, and she gets home safely as well. Me and my brother, we both had phones to make those calls to get the tow truck and get it moving. That got reconciled. Of course, it was a whole night of tow trucks coming back and forth and taking her back. And the next day, coming to the baptism, it was full of rain and thunderstorm and everything, even though nothing was going to stop me. The little sermon that Pastor René gave, it answered any of the curiosity questions I had about baptism, should I, is it the right moment? But it was the perfect moment that God had set up for me from the 2 years that I was into Christ. So everything was just a perfect, it was melody for God. Every little part was just amazing, and we just reflect back on all the roadblocks that Satan tried to put between, that he could not still take us down to get that baptism happen. So, and I'm just going to let Deborah continue her side of this.
I just wanted to go back to some of the things Manpreet said. First of all, I don't have a cell phone, so I just know that God did not allow my car to overheat until I was in the car with you. Because before that, if it had happened before that, I would have been on the road on the way to Manpreet's house, and I would have had no way of letting her know, and I would have just been at the whim of whatever driver might have been around. So, so I was just so thankful for that. And then on the way back, Manpreet called my CAA number for me, and they said it would be an hour. So it would have been 1 o'clock in the morning before the tow truck came, and the tow truck driver, when he arrived, he actually came at 1:30 in the morning, and he was so kind. And he also said, your friend said, I have to take care of you. You're an old lady. You don't have a cell phone, and you're in a parking lot all by yourself in the middle of the night. And he said, so I'm going to take care of you. And he was so kind. And he actually, I had to follow him to find a gas station that had a washroom open in the night, and then followed him to a Tim Hortons parking lot. And he called. He could not take me because I had an oil leak. So we had to call for a flatbed truck, which was going to be another hour. So I waited in the Tim Hortons parking lot, and some very strange things were happening in that parking lot, and unsafe things in the parking lot that night. So I prayed Psalm 91. I thought, okay, this is going to help me, and just to concentrate on the Lord and just to shrink back and into the shadows. And so it was completely safe. So also the tow truck, the flatbed truck did not come. So after about an hour and 20 minutes, I went to the Tim Hortons drive-through, and because the Tim Hortons itself was closed, and the man there was so kind. He was such a kind man, and he was trying to serve his drive-through customers, but at the same time, he had called CAA for me, and he was on hold with them for about 20 minutes, and he didn't give up. And it started to rain, and finally he let me into the first part of the Tim Hortons, the entryway. And then I found out it was going to be another hour for the flatbed truck to come, because the first flatbed had been on its way to pick me up, but had been diverted to the 401. So in the middle of all that, he was amazing. Just the Tim Hortons guy was absolutely amazing, and he actually offered to let me sit inside the Tim Hortons, but I just wanted to be by my car, so when the truck came, I would be there. So it was just so beautiful, because as Manpreet said, absolutely the most exciting thing was that when we were driving with her brother, that he asked me this question, and the question was, he didn't say this, but as someone who is older, what wisdom would you give? He did say this. What wisdom would you give to someone who is younger? And I just started to laugh, because to me the answer is Jesus. And it was just so beautiful because he listened. He was so kind, and he just listened to what I said, and I was able to give my testimony and the gospel. So we were just so excited about that. And I got home at 5 in the morning. I had a couple of hours sleep. And I remembered Manpreet saying, you have to come to my baptism. And I thought, nothing is going to stop me. And I went to I went to the service, and we had worship, and it was outside in the rain. And then we had the message, which was amazing, all about what baptism really means. And then everybody was baptized, along with lovely Manpreet. And it was just awesome, because at the end of it all, I realized I wasn't even tired after 2 hours sleep. But that's what I believe, that's what God does for his children. When we are obedient, we persevere, and we trust him. And so in that night, there were so many kind people that helped, and God's protection was over me, and I didn't have any reason to fear.
The sermon that the day of the baptism, Pastor René did a phenomenal job of explaining every single key term for baptism. So for just a recap, baptism is giving your old life back, and the old man, leaving old man, and then giving your Christ and making a public confession to Jesus Christ that he will be your Lord and Savior. And that's what I wanted to do, and I was so joyful to do it. And both, the whole night of Saturday night, Satan tried to put laziness, try to put roadblocks of any sort of, to put destruction, to not make it to my baptism. Mm-hmm. try to put any sort of sleep deprive, or, you know, any sort of like, anything that would like make me think like, oh, I'm just tired to not go today. But I think he did a very bad job.